So I'm just going to talk through the study guide a little bit. I won't solve everything, but at least kind of talk through. So this first question is just some economic reasoning. It's dealing with sunk cost fallacy. So let's say you go pay money to go see, I don't know, the new Star Wars movie, and halfway through it's just the most terrible movie on the face of the planet, which I hope is really not the case because I'm really looking forward to that movie, especially after that last preview. But that's aside the point, I suppose. Anyway, sunk cost. You're getting halfway through the movie. It's absolutely awful. You've already paid the money to go sit in the movie theater, but your intuition tells you, well, I want to get my money's worth. I'm going to stay for the entire movie. Economically speaking, that doesn't make any sense at all, because if you think halfway through the movie that it is just absolutely just awful, you should leave, because you can do better things with your time. You've already spent your money. There's no way you can get your money back, so the best thing you can do economically speaking is to leave, because there are better things to do with your time, another thing you can't get back. In this case, we're talking about a Lego. It's $300. The normal price is $100. You find it on, you find it on a trash can somewhere, so it's a rather ridiculous situation, but yeah, this kind of thing usually is a ridiculous situation because we're talking economics. Sometimes it doesn't apply wonderfully to real life if we do the very basic things. So what this question is asking is to just use economic reasoning, not be normal human beings for a bit, but just look at the numbers and see how we would actually act. So we were perfectly happy to spend $100 before, and now we find this Lego on a dumpster, and it is worth $300. Now, we weren't willing to pay $300 for it before. We were capable of it, but we were not willing to. So if we didn't spend $300 on it before, then we would not feel economically reasonable. It wouldn't be economically reasonable to actually keep this Lego if it was worth $300 and all we valued it before was $100. So, conclusion of this is we're going to sell it, even though, real human speak, I'd probably still give it to my brother, but economically speaking, you have to sell it because you weren't willing to buy it for $100 before, so you have to sell it for the $300 now. Sunk cost fallacy, just a little bit of economic reasoning. Let's see, question 2. Why do economic models fail? Provide a few reasons. So I put 4 reasons here. You can use whichever reasons you want. Ceteris paribus assumption. Most things we've done in class, well, actually almost everything. So when we were doing demand and supply graphs, and we had these nice demand, and then we had a nice supply line, and we said, okay, well, somebody enters the market and sells more apples. What the heck happens? Okay, so we have shift to the right of supply. Cool deal. Well, that's assuming nothing else happens in the market. And in fact, in the real market, we have everything moving all over the place all the time, and it's just this mess. So all of our economic models, to just make things simple and to make it so we can actually work with the information, we assume ceteris paribus. And ceteris paribus is just holding everything else constant. It's assuming nothing else changes, which in the real world, everything else changes. So it's a little bit dubious, I suppose, to assume ceteris paribus, and that's one of the reasons why our economic models fail, is because they're limited. And making really complicated models is difficult, and it takes time, and they have other problems. So, basic problem, ceteris paribus. Association versus causation. You're doing any sort of experimentation on anything. This could be a hard science, could be like physics or chemistry, or it could be a soft science like economics. Association versus causation is always going to be a problem, because something that two things just happen to correlate, to be together a lot, does not mean one causes the other. So in economics, we can say, well, okay, if we raise the interest rate, this should happen. Well, theoretically speaking, we might say that's true, but it's also possible that those two things just have always happened in the past together, but there's some other reason for them. So what we're looking at here is just correlation versus causation. Things happening by chance together, and we put a value on it. We say, well, this A created B, but really A and B just happened to be in the same place at the same time. We just saw them there. Another reason economic models fail. Homo economicus. In classical economics, we assume that people are perfectly rational. They make these awesome decisions, which in reality Normal people don't make wonderfully rational decisions, so we have some very strange economic effects from that. And it's difficult to make models based on non-perfect human beings because non-perfect human beings behave irrationally and they're hard to predict. And so if something's hard to predict, then by definition it's hard to make a model upon. So assuming Homo economicus can sometimes make our models fail because humans don't act perfectly rationally all the time. Last one is just hypothetical situations. Hypothetical situations are everything we've been talking about. I mean, everything we've talked about in class is hypothetical. It's theoretical. Yes, it might have happened in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen in the future. We can predict things very well, but not always perfectly. Okay, so moving down to question 3, we have production possibilities frontiers. So let's Google real quick what a PPF is going to look like. So production possibility curve, sure. All right. So first one that comes up on wonderful Google machine. So we have quantity of guns produced and quantity of butter produced. So we have this country. We only have 2 different products in this country. And we can produce somewhere up here at point B. This is not very much butter, but it's a lot of guns. And we can go down here to C. This is a lot of butter, but it's not very many guns. So we have to have this trade-off, and it's going to be this trade-off along this line. So we only have so many people in the society, let's say. So we have to employ them either in the gun shop or the butter shop. And if we move more people to the butter shop, we're going to make more butter. And if we move more people to the gun shop, we're going to make more guns. And anywhere on this blue line is a possible production for us at peak efficiency. If we're anywhere below this, like here, well, we could be all the way out here on this nice blue line. But if we're at point A, we're below our possibility, our most efficient state. So here's efficiency out here. It may not sound awesome to make like tons of butter and just a little guns, or tons of guns and just a little butter, but as far as how productive we are being in making those 2 products, this is our efficiency line out here. We can't go beyond it because we can't get like 150% efficient, or else we would have cars that would go around the earth on 1 tank of gas. It's physically impossible. We have some limits in physics. So X out here is outside the range of possibility. Here we have our efficiency curve. Anything within here is possible. It's just like at point A, it's not efficient anymore. All the way around here is efficient. All right, so that's production possibilities frontier. You get to draw one. You're going to have 2 products in an economy. So that's basically all of this. Why does the trade-off exist? Well, you have to shift factors of production. We're generally going to be talking about labor because that's the simplest one to talk about. It's like maybe a village. You can think really, really super simple. It's a village and we only have so many people. So we only have so many people available to actually make a product. So this trade-off exists because we have to shift people between the 2 industries, guns and butter in the case of this. All right. So opportunity cost is exactly the same thing. Opportunity cost is, well, okay, if we're at point B, then we're making a lot of guns and not very much butter. Well, we can move here. And our opportunity cost is, if we make more butter, we make less guns. So we go from B to D, we have less guns, but we have more butter. So the opportunity cost is whatever we didn't get to do because we made this new choice. Make more butter, make less guns. Opportunity cost. Okay, outside of town produces new way to produce the same amount of beef while using less corn or for feed. Okay, so we get more efficient at making these products. In this case, we get more efficient at making beef. We can use less corn, make the same amount of beef. So what happens is, let's say this, instead of butter in our example in this, it was beef. Let's change it to butter. If we get more efficient at doing it, then we have a new line. We could draw a new line out like here, let's say. And it gets pushed out because 100% efficiency, this old line, we get to move it out. So our new line would start somewhere like here, let's say, and go up and meet up here because we didn't get any better at making guns. We only got better at making butter. So we have this line, and it gets moved out over here because we can make more butter, same amount of inputs. Our production possibilities frontier shifts out. That's what technology does, is shifts production possibilities frontier out. All right. So let's say another town you were in. Okay, the E's just about ish the same, except we get to draw one town that doesn't have technology increase and one town that does. Explain the difference between productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. Okay, productive efficiency is, okay, are we great at making guns? Cool deal. We're really good at making guns with very little input. People are very quick, let's say, at making some 1911 Colt handgun. We're really super quick at it. We don't have any waste. That is productive efficiency. We're very good at making this product very efficiently. Very little waste. Everything goes into actually making the product. Allocative efficiency is we're looking at the economy as a whole. What do we want to do in general? Like, do we only want to make guns efficiently, or do we want kind of a balance? Like it's point D here, let's say. Do we want just as much butter as we have guns? That sounds like a decent trade-off. We wouldn't want to be up here because then we don't have much butter. Maybe we wouldn't be able to butter as much toast. That's a problem. Over here, we wouldn't be able to go out shooting as much. We wouldn't be able to go shoot deer. We're not going to go into political implications of this, but guns are kind of a tough one to do advantages of more guns, but this can work with any product. So there's just trade-offs here. So allocative efficiency is, do we have way more of one product than the other? Well, we might want to sort of move to the middle because balance is usually going to give us the best deal, essentially. Question 4, you should have this. You should have it all filled out. If you guys have any questions on this, give me an email. We have, 2 more days until the final. You can email me anytime in the meantime. So let's see. So this is my air guitar example. This is perfect competition. So we have you and your friends are starting a company making air guitars. At the same time, another firm enters the same air guitar market. So we have very few number of firms starting in this new industry. Both of your firms have mover advantage first in the market. So you're going to make economic profits, which doesn't happen in perfect competition for very long. So let's say we want to Google perfect competition in the short run. All right. So here we have one that says economic profit. Cool deal. Okay, so we have our marginal cost. Here's our green line of price. And we will produce at marginal cost equals marginal revenue. So MR and MC here, we're going to produce right here at this point. But hey, look at our average total cost is less. We're making economic profit. So in this air guitar business, since we were the first ones into it, air guitar is kind of a ridiculous example. Let's say some new industry. I don't know, you were the first to make laptops, and you got into this industry, or let's say drones. Recently, drones have been a big thing. You were the first person to get into the drone making industry, so nobody else, you didn't have any competitors. You have mover advantage. You're the first person in the market, so your curve looks something like this. You can actually make economic profit. Problem is, people start moving into the market as soon as you do that. So you're going to draw industry diagram, firm diagram. By the way, this is what your firm diagram is going to look like. The industry diagram is going to, hey, this happens to just be right here. Cool deal. So in the short run, here's our industry diagram, and here's our firm diagram. Cool deal. So here's the industry as a whole. Downward sloping demand curve because it's the industry. Here's what each individual, you are a maker of drones, here's what each individual producer, you in this case, is going to look like. Industry, what your curve looks like. So here's single firm, your firm. Supernormal profits in the short run, this is economic profits, same thing, supernormal and economic are, this is just 2 terms for the same thing. What we've called it in class is economic profits. More than normal profits, which is what you make in perfect competition in the long run. All right, so you're going to be doing this. So A is what you saw here, is exactly this. And B, show market price and quantity. Quantity, price, done. On the firm diagram, show the market price output, average cost of making output. Okay, average cost is going to be this. and this is going to be our quantity, and this is going to be our price. So you go right here. Okay, so this is our average total cost. Go over, and this is going to be our cost for making each unit, because this average total cost is right here. That's just how it works. See this line? We're producing at this, so we go down. We're producing at this quantity. Look at this. Go over. Cool deal. That's where our our cost is going to be. So average cost of making the output. In the following years, a number of other companies enter the air guitar market, which is terrible because as soon as people enter the market and you're in perfect competition, your economic profits start to dry up, which is unfortunate for you. It's just going to happen. All right. So you're going to do the same thing, show, state, blah, 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 for our industry and the firm. Wait. So on the firm diagram, show the market price, output, and with reference to adjusted diagram, you have drawn comments on what has happened to level of production efficiency and level of economic profit or loss. All right, so here we go. Here's what happens. So as soon as more people start entering this market, we have more supply. So supply shifts to the right. That pushes the price down. And here's what happens to our firm diagram. You're individual, you're no longer making economic profits. So here we have marginal cost equals marginal revenue. We're going to be producing right here at this price and this quantity. And it's going to just happen to be the same as our average total cost, which that is how perfect competition works. People enter the market if people are making economic profits, and it pushes it down to cost. At this point, we are making normal profits only. All right, so the last one, popularity of air guitars has declined. Who knows why? You're going to do the same thing, except now you can make the decision that, well, the popularity has waned, so we could forget about this supply curve because this is the one we moved from. Think about this supply curve and this demand curve for now. So that's where we were at in the second part of the question. We're now in the third part of the question. The popularity of your product has declined. So we're going to probably have a shift left of demand. So our new demand curve would be something like from where I'm at right now up to here, let's say. So our new price would be down, and our quantity would be down because our new equilibrium point would be somewhere right around here, since we had a line that went like this. I can't draw it right now, but I would if I could. Problem about that is that if it drops our price, then, well, let's say our price went to about here. Should be about equivalent. So let's say our price is here. That's our average revenue equals marginal revenue. Problem is, our average total cost is still up here. Now we're producing at a deficit. We're losing money on everything. So what we have to do is either figure out a better way to make our product and have our costs go down, but that doesn't usually happen in perfect competition just because of the nature of it, or we have to get out of the market. Good thing about perfect competition is we're going to assume that it's easy to get in and out of this market. Air guitars should be super easy to get out of the market. Other things would be like wheat. Farm products are the most used perfectly competitive market out there. So basically, third part is your price is probably going to go down. What are you going to do? You're going to be making economic loss now because your total cost is up here, but we moved from this red line in the first part to this red line in the second part to our third red line, and the third part is going to be somewhere down here. It doesn't look like somebody has an example of that here. No. Okay. These are actually really good graphs. I'm surprised because I didn't look those up before. Okay, so question 6. We normally like competition as economics or economists, but sometimes monopoly is preferred. State some reasons why this would be. All right, so hint, give 4 reasons. Originally, this test asked for 4 reasons. So we're going to do, let's just come up with some reasons. Why is monopoly good? All right, so let's see what people have come up with. Wonderfully helpful. All right, so important to recognize high market concentration held by one firm does not necessarily imply the absence of competition. So we're supposed to be examples. Come on. Okay, so increasing returns to scale. When something has increasing returns to scale, economies of scale, then as a company gets bigger, it can output its production for a lower price per unit. So I'm reading right here for this. Major utilities like electricity, gas, and water are often characterized as natural monopolies because, well, it says here, incur high fixed production and distribution costs. So since they have such high costs to it, it works really well if there's one company that does it for, let's say, the example I'm going to use, I'm sorry it doesn't work wonderfully in New Zealand, is in the United States. Each state, almost every single state, has a monopoly power provider. Not the case here, obviously, because there are multiple power providers, but in the states, each individual state, generally speaking, has its own individual power provider. Like Idaho, where I'm from, we have Idaho Power, and it is the only place you can buy power from. So here you go, Idaho Power. It is an Idaho company. So it is owned by the state of Idaho. It is a natural monopoly. It's owned by the state. It's regulated and whatever. But this is one reason why we sometimes prefer, that was sunk cost fallacy on the other page. We sometimes prefer monopolies because they're natural, and if we tried to break it up, we would have really high costs. Sometimes it's easier just to have a monopoly like this and just kind of regulate it, keep tabs on it so we don't have an abuse, because otherwise we'd have super high costs. So just look up some reasons like that. Yeah, that's basically all the questions going forward. Question 7 is costs. We did this in class. I don't have a good way of writing this out right now because I'm just capturing my screen. So basically you want to figure out, okay, accounting is all of the actual money that gets exchanged. So you add up all. So here we have our revenue, here we have our materials, so we're going to add up our costs. 550,000, 45,000, 9,000, 21,000. We bought it for this. We have interest rate of 6%, so we have to pay 6% on this a year. So let's say we're doing it for the first year. We take 6% of the 725, figure out what that costs for our first year. That would be our accounting cost. Anything that's actually like physical money that's being exchanged. When we look at our economic cost, well, your wife quit her job. That's $50,000 that you're not getting anymore. So that's something you have to account for, economically speaking, but won't necessarily show up, let's say, on, well, for an accountant's perspective. He's just going to say, okay, well, you're spending $550,000, you're spending $45,000. Well, your accountant isn't going to say, well, your wife's making $50,000 less. It's not going to be in the same realm. So the difference between accounting cost and economic cost is economic cost tries to encompass everything. Accounting costs are just going to grab stuff like this: the 9,000, 2,000, the taxes, the power, the employee wages, whatever the cost for the building. You get to incorporate the 50,000 and the 7,500 into your economic costs. All right, question 8. Air guitar market is very competitive. Global financial crisis has caused the demand for air guitars to go down. The result has been typical air guitar now sells for $300. While the price has fallen, costs have not. Fixed cost of an air guitar is $160 and variable cost is $170. So let's add those two up. 160 plus 170 is going to be $330. Now, we're only selling air guitars for $300. So $330 cost, $300 revenue. We have a loss of $30. Our profit is negative $30. That's a problem because we're losing money. Businesses don't like to lose money. They shut down when they do that. So given these figures, should the air guitar manufacturer stay in business in the short term, long term, or shut down immediately? Remember to explain your answer. Always good, explain. I can give partial credit if you actually give some reasoning for your answer. If you don't, I can't help you at all. I can give you any partial credit. All right, so this company, if they continue selling air guitars, is losing $30 a pop because costs are $330 and revenue is only $300. This is a problem. But should they shut down, should they stay in business in the short term, long term, or shut down immediately? Probably in the long term, unless they can change something, is a bad idea. $330 and $300 revenue is just not going to work long term. In the short term, however, before they can change things, before they can change that fixed cost, they actually can contribute to that fixed cost something they can't get out of. Let's say it's like rent on a building, or rent on a building is actually a really good example. We'll just stick with that. So the $160 is the rent they have to pay, let's say, per guitar. It's just how it's worked out. They're going to have to pay that regardless. So what they can do is they can sell air guitars and make that $300, which is enough to pay the $160, a bit of the rent. You're still losing $30, but if you don't sell any air guitars, you're losing $160 because you have to pay the rent. If you sell something in the short term, sometimes it comes out better because our fixed cost is $160 in this case. So Here we go. We can pay part of this we can pay all of the $160 off with this 300, and we can go almost to this 170. We're $30 short. So in short term, we're going to stay open. If we can't change anything in the long term, we're probably going to shut down, because losing money long term it just doesn't work. Short term, stay open. Long term, if we can't change anything, we're going to shut down. Otherwise, we're going to change something, maybe stay open. Shut down immediately? No, we're going to stay open in the short term. Okay, so question 9. Commerce Commission is the organization with a role to protect the interest of consumers. Explain some reasons why consumers might not want big companies to merge. Use a diagram in your explanation. All right. What this is looking for is, let's Google monopoly curve, let's say, versus perfect competition. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Not wonderful examples here so far. You're supposed to finish this. Erg. This might be close. Okay, cool. Competitive market. All right. So here's competitive market. Here is pure monopoly. What happens in a perfectly competitive market is we have this quantity and this price. So it's actually shown here, this quantity, this price. So this is efficient. Perfectly competitive markets are efficient. They're as efficient as we get in the real world. Monopolies, on the other hand, produce at this level, right here. And so they produce at this price and this quantity, which is what? Less than perfect competition as far as quantity goes. So we have less products, and each of those products are a higher price. So this price to this price. Monopolies give us less of something, and it's more expensive. So if a monopoly forms, which is what happens when big companies merge. So let's say you only have 2 telephone providers in a country. If those 2 telephone providers merge, they become a monopoly because there's only one company now. And we move from something that looks closer to this to something that looks closer to this. We have less quantity provided and a higher price, which generally speaking isn't good. Question 10. We've got equity versus efficiency. So equity is just things being equal in a very basic sense. Efficiency is the best we can produce something, the most efficient. It's using definition, or using the word in its own definition, but whatever. We've covered efficiency the whole time. Equity versus efficiency. So this is a very political debate, I suppose, because at the most equitous, at the most equal, the government would just take everybody's money and then divvy it out perfectly evenly back to everybody. So everybody had the exact same amount of money. But as a society, we've decided that that's probably not the best way to do things, because people would get a little mad that their money was being taken and given to. They could make the argument that maybe it would be given to lazy people that just weren't working at all, who would actually get money for not doing anything, because other people would have jobs and they would give money because it's all being equal. So that's equity. Efficiency is, well, if we're going to use the money thing again, then who's going to use that money best? We want to give those people the money. So it's not a wonderful economic example, but that is equity versus efficiency. So you're going to be asked a question. You're going to have to compare equity versus efficiency. And if you have any questions on that, you should be able to Google it, or you can email me. That'd be totally fine. So why might increasing one decrease the other? So if we increase efficiency, might equity decrease? Might people be less equal if we're better efficient in the economy? It's entirely possible. Last thing, does an increase in one always result in a decrease in the other? I don't know. That is a question for you to answer. This is slightly subjective. It's not necessarily a perfect, exact answer to this. This is just a little bit of reasoning. So if we increase efficiency, does equity have to decrease? Are they inversely related? Are they directly related? Or is it somewhere in the middle? Who knows? Spend a little bit of time on Google. Look it up. It's just a reasoning question. We talked about this in class plenty. So yeah, that should be it for this study guide. And this will look, you will be well prepared for the exam if you look over this. see if you can answer these type of questions. You'll be very well prepared for the exam. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to email me. We have, it's Saturday. We have another couple of days until the test. So if there's some last minute studying questions, I'll be here. Feel free. Thanks.